Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Amy.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Production, the Break It Down Show. We've got a fantastic and crazy album fight for you guys tonight. And one of the, if not the best country album of all time. It's Willie Nelson's 1975 Red-Headed Stranger, taking on the Pretenders' third album, Learning to Crawl. And today we have two judges. And actually, today I'm actually putting on the tuxedo T-shirt and joining these guys and being an official judge as well as host. But I also have two guys that haven't judged together, and I wanted to fix that right away. So we've got Brian Theis and Phil Green in the ring with us tonight. Thanks, fellas, for coming on and joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having us. And you just reminded me I need to literally design your tuxedo T-shirt that you keep asking me to do.
Yeah, once you do that, we'll get those things on order so everybody can buy one. In the meantime, Phil, would you actually go ahead and do our corner announcements?
Today's album fight is a 10-round battle between an outlaw and a band singing about a chain gang. In the red corner, with heavy hearts from the loss of two band members, we have the Pretenders and their third studio album from 1984, Learning to Crawl. And their opponent in the blue corner, we have the storytelling of one of the main figures in outlaw country, Willie Nelson, with his 18th studio album from 1975, Red-Headed Stranger. Let's get ready to ramble. Now back to our amazing judges.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much. Now let's have Richard do his, and this is going to be great. I can't wait to hear Richard's prefab. Richard?
Album fight is going to be a good test for the numbers because we're kind of in new territory here. We have a country album versus a rock album. So my curiosity, is this going to translate well? Are the comparisons going to be accurate when jumping genres? Sure, we've touched on other genre versus genre fights in the past with hip-hop or R&B versus rock, but I think, at least my gut tells me, that this might actually be a harder type of fight to pick. But let's see. According to the numbers, this is Nelson's fight to lose. After running 12 different variables, Red-Headed Stranger had an 8-2 advantage. There were also two categories that ended up tied. So according to the numbers, at best, it's still Nelson's fight at 8-4, or what would roughly come out to a 7-3 round win. But I'm skeptical. First, it will really depend on the judges' thoughts on country versus rock. And also, there was a significant amount of combining rounds to make this work, and that could also come into play. Does two strong small songs outweigh one good song? Or does a bad small song compared with a great small song cost that album that round? I'm not sure. So while I'm sticking with the numbers here and saying Willie should win, I kind of wonder if it won't be the blowout the numbers seem to suggest. It could be a split vote. Who knows? But I think Willie should eke out a win. Let's find out. I'm just as curious as you are. Back to you guys.
Yeah. Okay, so the numbers do come back. It's hard to tell. This is a weird fight setup. I know we've talked, Brian, about how to shrink down the Red-Headed Stranger, and just so the audience knows, this is a very short album in terms of time, but it has a lot of tracks. So the songs are doing a variety of things, and we sort of compressed them. I guess, Brian, what I want to ask you is, as we looked at the compression of the the 13 or 14 tracks, and we got it down to 10, what were your thoughts on that process so we can account for that?
Well, we tried to put tracks together that went together in the narrative and kept them around the same length. And, in terms of judging the fight, that made it hard to judge in the fact that this was a concept album and, there's a story arc that goes from the beginning to the end, but in each individual round, there's only one story that should be told. So, yeah, it was an interesting fight to judge, and it was an interesting fight to build.
Brian, have you enjoyed Red-Headed Stranger as an album in the past, or was this your first real pass through it?
I grew up listening to Willie Nelson. My favorite song growing up was Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Bunny Rabbits, hijacked from Cowboys. So, yeah, no, I've heard Red-Headed Stranger thousands of times.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big aficionado of Willie Nelson in general, and definitely love this album. It's fantastic. Phil, what are your thoughts? This is such a weird fight with the combination of songs on the concept album versus more of a traditional rock album. What did you think going in?
Well, I'd never listened to, I've never listened to any Willie Nelson albums, to be honest, let alone this album. So I went into it with really virgin ears, and I was pleasantly surprised. So the musicianship, the songwriting capabilities, granted, he didn't write all of the songs on this, but I was very impressed with Willie Nelson. And to me, since it was a concept album, it really felt like it needed an accompanying movie or something to deliver the full effect of this. But as individual tracks, there were certain songs on here that blew me away. And I was like, wow, I really like that. I would listen to that again. And I am not a country fan in the slightest. So,
yeah, and it's funny because the album was such a hit, they actually went ahead and made a movie. It took a minute to get it done, and ultimately Willie had to help, had to pretty much fund it himself, but it for sure got made, and he was the Red-Headed Stranger in it.
Yeah, wasn't it almost like 10 years difference between the album release and the movie?
Yeah.
I think so. It was released in 86, I think, the movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, let's just go ahead and get started. Let's just go ahead and go round one, middle of the road versus a 2-song medley, The Time of the Preacher, and I Couldn't Believe It Was You. Brian, get us started.
Time of the Preacher. I would think that it would be hard to evoke a real mood using the stripped-down recording style that Willie uses on this. I think this album was first rejected by the label because it sounded too much like a demo. But, I mean, he really accomplished that just using the guitar and some piano and maybe I think it's a tambourine. It starts out sounding rightfully ominous. I guess it's the tambourine. It's kind of a jangling spurs, chains dropping on the table effect. It has like a shuffle along quality when he begins to realize what's going on with his wife. On the way out, it has this wandering quality as the preacher he's clearly lost. He's looking for answers. And that segues into I Couldn't Believe It Was True. Outside of the narrative, this song might seem bouncy and springy, but here, you listen to the music and Willie's vocals, and it evokes an image of going around in circles. The downward spiral as the preacher realizes his wife's infidelity and he tries to move on. Middle of the road, I thought this was going to be an easy round. It wasn't. After all that praise, I thought Willie would steal it, but I mean, the Pretenders, they come back with just some pure 4/4 rock and blues. The lyrics, they make you stop. The whole second verse with the rich fat cats driving through the city. When you own a big chunk of the bloody third world, the babies just come with the scenery. Everything about this song makes it an earworm for me. The drums, the bluesy guitar, the harmonica, and I even like the background vocals, the oh. And she ends it going, I'm tired as hell. I got a kid. I'm 33. I've been there. This round was real close. It might have been the closest round of the fight, and I think Willie just told the story a little bit better, and I gave it to him 10-9.
Okay, Phil, so what's your round one analysis?
Well, seeing as how I'm very familiar with the Pretenders and their catalog of work, and Chrissie Hynde is extremely talented vocally. I really enjoy what she does. And I didn't have a whole lot of background into really either of these artists. I mean, I know Willie Nelson as a marijuana ambassador or advocate, so not so familiar with his music. But round one, middle of the road, I'm extremely familiar with it. The drum intro is unmistakable, and I like it because it's a fun song. The harmonica is a nice touch. When you're talking about fat guys driving around in their Jeeps in the city, I mean, who doesn't like that, right? It's a great song. The format that we're doing this, The Time of the Preacher combined with I Couldn't Believe It Was True. The whole Willie Nelson, this whole album is super clean, very stripped down. The low production value, I think, adds to the album. And Time of the Preacher, I love the guitar. I couldn't believe it was true. The pace was great. The banjo and the guitar complement Willie's vocals seamlessly. I just thought it was a great compliment for one another with the vocals and the accompaniment. But I had to give this one 10-9 to the Pretenders, middle of the road.
All right, my round one was, it's a classic Pretenders song. Yeah, a hit from the third album. And third albums, for me, are where you legitimize really great bands, because you've had to do this several times. And in this case, with all that's happened, the ongoing breakup of her relationship with Ray Davies, between Chrissy and Ray, having a kid, and that's going to be crazy. You've got the death of two of the firing and subsequent death of two different players in the band. They went from 4 to 2. It's like these are best friends, and they're breaking up, and you have to go out and put an album together. And what that means, it's such a powerful start to the song, and that harmonica solo, we've all mentioned it. It's so strong, and Chrissy Hind they're in the Hall of Fame because of the ideas that she brought forth and their ability to get her there. Time of the Preacher, I couldn't believe it was you. It's a nice medley. Like you guys have said, it sets the tone. Boy, Brian, you really got this right, talking about how, you can see and experience the Preacher's spiral, and the line, "My shock is so green, I am quivering yet." It's probably the best lyric in the entire fight. It's so fresh. He doesn't even know how to respond. He starts with, "I'm going to forgive but not forget," wishes her happiness, understands there's a give and take like this, my loss is this guy's gain, but he still just can't believe it. And Willie's, setting it up. And I just think that Chrissy's solo, we've all mentioned it, is so strong on that harmonica. It's a slight edge in a close round, but I went 10-9 Pretenders. Let's look at round two. Phil, go ahead and tee us up for this first one here.
I mean, this album, and I don't think we mentioned it, but Learning to Crawl, this was basically the birth of her child, and she was watching her little girl learn to crawl. And so when she didn't have a name for the album, she was watching her daughter learn to crawl, and that's where the genesis of the name of the album. But the Pretenders just come out of the gates, just round one, round two, swinging, and Back on the Chain Gang is just another iconic Pretender song, and the guitar intro grabs you right away. Love the ooh ah. I mean, it's just that song is fantastic. And then it's going against Willie Nelson with back to the concept album. I look at the Time of the Preacher theme as kind of the transition. It's transition music, getting from one place to another, one story to another story almost. And the medley, Blue Montana, Redheaded Stranger, I like the storytelling that's going on here, and I can see where this is going, and it's again very clean, and the vocals are very precise, and I liked it, but I didn't like it nearly enough to give that round to Willie Nelson, so it went to Back on the Chain Gang and the Pretenders 10-9.
Yeah, for me, round two, I think this is the difference where you have a very good Pretender song running into the concept of Willie. And like you said, he uses the Time of the Preacher to teach us what's about to happen. And the lesson's over, and here comes the killing. What makes a difference for me in this round is when Willie talks about the Preacher. He tried, and then he whispers that last one. That third try is it's a difference maker, and it elevates the lies and the agony that are going on, but he just couldn't take it. Saddles his pony and starts killing. That is a terrifying concept album. Here's a guy that comes in to massacre his wife and her lover, and he doesn't do it right there on the spot. He waits. He's cold, and that is that is heavy. I have to mention James Honeysmith Scott and his jangle guitar, and instant recognition that REM and the Smiths pick up this sound and they run with it. And you have to mention him when you talk about early Pretenders. Chrissy Hind is still relevant today with her songs. Her writing is great. She's taking a unique and powerful female voice, and that's to this day still important. And what a champion for these things. This is a great song. It's a song they absolutely play to this day, and it's been on the greatest hits for, shoot, it's coming up on 40 years now. So this is a great song, but that third tried is what did it for me. That's Willie Nelson 10-9. Brian?
Yeah, as far as the time of the preacher theme, like you mentioned, the first song, it ended, now the preaching is over and the lesson's begun. And this song, it's the end result of that downward spiral I talked about in the last round. And the preacher, this man of God, he can't find it in himself to forgive. So, now the preaching is over and the killing's begun.
Now the lesson is over and the killing's begun.
That segues into the Blue Rock, Montana Redheaded Stranger. There's no joy in getting vengeance. The preacher, he's broken in soul, and he's riding around hoping that he's wrong, but he confirms that he's not. And then it ends with they died with the smiles on their faces. You follow that up with the chorus from Redheaded Stranger, and everybody just realizes, you don't fuck with a broken man, and just hope he moves on without hurting anybody. And that goes up against Back on the Chain Gang, which, wow. This is another round. We got to pick nits to determine a winner, and the one nit that I can pick with this song was that it was actually released 2 years before the album, and it appeared on a movie soundtrack prior to Learning to Crawl was released. So I take a little bit away because it's not truly original. But the Chain Gang imagery is so crucial. The Chain Gang, everyone's tied together, trying to work together. And here, the Pretenders, they're trying to do that, but they're doing it after losing, like you said, 2 of their members to drugs. I love the bright guitar and the drums. I read that the way they recorded the drums was they set up small loudspeakers in the studios to really make those snares pop. For this round, I had to go with one complete song over pieces of 3 other songs, so I gave it to the Pretenders 10-9.
Yeah, that was a tight round for sure, and boy, I can't blame you for wanting to go that direction, especially with her life is actually physically tearing down around her, and she's writing about that. Plus, you get your dream, you're going to be this rock and roll band. The band all dies around you, and the label's like, yeah, where's the next album? Where's the next hit? Let's go. You're going too slow. Like, it's so heavy. Let's go ahead and go round 3. Time of the Avenger versus Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. Okay, this is my round to start off. So that last round, I think we see some damage from the Pretenders. This is the first weak song on the album. Time of the Avengers is very dated. It's cliche, and it sounds like something you knock out for a side gig for, a TV show needs some kind of a movement music, and you're like, hey, I'll be back in half an hour, and here's the song. This is not very good, and I'm not sure this won't be a 10-7 round. Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. One of the things about this album that struck me, especially with the album fight and how we really are critical with covers. You have to bring something, and Willie Nelson clearly brings something. You can listen to Hank Williams in not Hank Williams Jr., but Hank Williams Sr., and he's like the icon of all country singers, and his version pales in comparison to this. Plus, you add in the meaning that the song now has in the context of this concept album, and it is fantastic. You can hear him riding in the rain. He's just murdered this woman and the man, but there's still love, and not in this life. That part's over, but they'll meet again some other day. This is more than a cover. This is a completely original way to offer this song, and I love it. This for me is a knockdown at 10-8 for Willie Nelson. Phil?
Now that I hear your analysis, I'm rethinking my score, but Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain is just a simple, again, the entire album's, for the most part, very simply, the musicality is very simple, but so clean and beautiful. And Willie's vocals are pure and excellent. It's amazing. And one thing that really stood out for me, and I don't know, well, we're doing the Pretenders. I'm a pretender guitar player, right? And the guitar is so clean, and I called it articulated because it is like somebody speaking and articulating. That's how that guitar in this Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain sounds to me. It's articulated guitar. And then we have the Pretenders, Time the Avenger. And again, Chrissy is amazing. Her vocals are solid, but I don't really understand what's going on. The foundational instrumentation of this song, I didn't get it. I didn't like it. I do like the lyrics. Nobody's perfect, not even a perfect stranger. And that whole idea of that that was the only thing that saved this song for me from this being a knockdown, and I had this Willie Nelson 10-9.
Brian, did you see something in Time of the Avenger that we didn't see?
I didn't see enough. Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, like you said, this song, it's older than any of us, and I think it's been played by anybody who's ever worn a cowboy hat and picked up a guitar. But, this song, it's undeniably Willie Nelson. Even you take this song outside of the story arc of the Red-Headed Stranger, and it stands out as exceptional. I've owned, 3 or 4 Willie Nelson's greatest hits, or compilations, or live albums, and this song's on all of them. I can't say that about, I don't think, any other song, the great ones. Time the Avenger. We've had a few songs on Album Fights about, the march of time and how there's a price to pay for your actions. This song, it reminds me of this wind-up clock we had in the living room of my mom's house. I think my parents bought it using points from a gas station promotion. It would chime once on the half hour and announce the time at the top of every hour. And it would tick loudly, except that I couldn't hear it since I had been exposed to the ticking my whole life. If I stared at the clock and watched the pendulum swing, then I could hear it. Tick-tock, 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 with the emphasis on the tick. And to get to my point, that's the effects that the drums have in this song. They hit that tick, tick, tick to go along with Chrissy singing. But that effect, that's not nearly enough. Willie takes us around easy, 10-9.
All right, well, let's move into round 4, Red-Headed Stranger versus Watching the Clothes. And we'll have Brian start us off.
Red-Headed Stranger, wow. Early on in this fight, I mentioned how Willie, he managed to set a tone with very sparse instrumentation and production. In this song, he paints a vivid picture for all of us to see, and the most descriptive adjectives are colors. We got a red-headed stranger from Blue Rock, Montana, with his raging black stallion and his dancing bay pony, and they meet up with a yellow-haired lady. With these simple descriptions, everyone can see what's going on. Does your red-headed stranger look more like Justin Taylor or Andy Dalton, or does your yellow-haired lady look like Dolly Parton or Christina Applegate? It doesn't matter, but all of us can see the scene, and we all know exactly what's going on. Watching the clothes go round. The skit show in Living Color, they once did this skit about Tracy Chapman's, her songwriting style. It was basically her just sitting in a window putting music to what was happening outside. It was, I write a fast song, I got a tarantula on my head. Listening to this one, the Pretenders are doing a song about doing laundry on a Saturday night, and it reminds me of that skit. Except for the fact that laundry itself isn't fun. This is a fun song. I love the guitar solo and the pacing. There might be a deeper meaning to the lines about the whites getting whiter and the colors getting brighter. There might not be. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is one of the best songs ever written about doing laundry. That being said, it doesn't hold a candle to Red-Headed Stranger, and Willie takes around 10-9.
Phil, you got a pocket full of quarters for the laundromat?
No, I took all my quarters down to the arcade and played Pac-Man Fever. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not as kind to watching the clothes as Brian was. I found it really hard to listen to. I found the guitar technique was very abrasive and grating, and maybe it's trying to replicate the sound of a washing machine going round and round. But if that's the case, it was very successful because I don't like listening to washing machine either. The one thing I did like in the song, the tribal drums at the very end, like if I would have had more of that, okay, this song would have been more tolerable for me, but it didn't. And then, what else can I say about the Red-Headed Stranger that Brian didn't already say? It's beautiful lyrical storytelling, and I like how Brian pointed out the colors, but to me, the sound also transported me into that artscape that he's asking us to envision. So when the piano jumped in, I was immediately transported into a saloon tavern. It just felt like I was automatically now into an Old West scene. And I thought that was fantastic. And I like the lyrics, don't cross him, don't boss him, he's wild in his sorrow. It was just a fantastic song. And I had this a knockdown for Willie Nelson, 10-8 over Watching the Clothes.
Wow. Yeah. Big knockdown round. All right. Well, I'll throw mine at you. We have to mention Paul's drumming here because, yes, of course he's keeping time. But this sounds like a horse walking, like a shoed horse walking on pavement. It's shk, shk. You can hear it. You can, like you guys said, he's with this one song, he's painted this picture. And if you weren't already with him, you're absolutely seeing it. And the songs previous, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, same thing. You get all of the images, and it's just, There's hardly anything in these songs, but there's so much imagery. Brian, that stuff about the colors is just great. It's just fantastic. So this guy, like you said before, he's hurt and he doesn't give a damn. So he's numb, he's dangerous. He walks into a saloon, he's paying for drinks, he doesn't care. You can't get mad at a guy for killing a woman who's trying to steal his horse. Boy. Whew. Wild in his sorrow, by the way. I love that line as well. He's just trying to figure out, he's in survival mode. He's layering all these chapters together, and even though this is song v song, there's so much weight carried with each of these songs. They're really, the concept album for me is still working. Like, it's still like, you're like, wow, what is he doing now in this round? And I can't wait to hear the next thing. I was surprised to have that happen. I don't know if you guys had that feeling. Let's talk about that when my analysis is over, but the concept is still working. And watching the close look, I know what the Pretenders are capable of. This is not their best. I don't know if this is post-punk. It's a little bit new wave. It's a little bit rock and roll. And they're totally fine on those genres. It doesn't get there, not with the other great songs that are on this album. It's one of the weaker ones. And so this, for me, is a very wobbly-legged Pretenders losing 10-9 to Willie. What do you guys think? Is the concept album holding up despite the song v song format? Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's holding up real well so far. I think.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero, co-host of the Break It Down Show and fellow producer here at Lions Rock Productions. And I'm proud to announce our newest show. It's called Justice. Season 1 is going to be a deep dive into some of the cases I personally worked on as a licensed private investigator, and you'll get a unique view into the criminal justice system that may just challenge some of your personal notions about how it should work and open your eyes in ways you never imagined. So keep your ears open for Justice, a brand new podcast coming in January from Lions Rock Productions to iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
What do you guys think? Is the concept album holding up despite the song v song format? Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's holding up real well so far. I think it's Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson can sing a song.
Yeah.
So he's definitely got that going for him. And the story arc and trying to piece it together and take it apart for the rounds, it's not hurting him so far. I think he's doing a really good job.
Phil, this is your first time through this album. Is the concept holding up?
Yeah, I think if I look at this as chapters in a book, as he's telling the story, each chapter can stand on its own as a strong song offering. So the fact that it's a concept, it may hurt him in this next round. We'll talk about that in the next round. But I would say for the most part, each song is really standing on its own warrants. And even though there's a greater mesh holding these songs together in this concept album, it's not hurting us in this round v round matchup.
Well, let's go ahead and do round 5, Show Me versus The Time of the Preacher and Just As I Am. Phil, go ahead and start us.
So again, we have this transition period again with Willie Nelson and the Time of the Preacher theme as it's transitioning to the next story. And in this particular case, it's not really a story, it's a hymn, and it's a beautiful instrumental hymn. I love the lyrical guitar. But now we're going against a song that from the Pretenders, Show Me, that's got a great intro. Again, Chrissy, the lyrics are fantastic. Her tone is great. And then it's almost like a tale of two songs. The second half of this just kicks in a whole nother gear, and I loved it. I love the lyric, Welcome to the Human Race. It's just I had this as 10-9 for the Pretenders, Show Me. And, I think having, again, this instrumental section of Willie Nelson's story and the concept, I think that hurt him in this particular round.
Yeah, for me, round 5, look, Chrissy finds her range, and this is a very good song. The jangle guitar, the female perspective lyrics, I love what she does and her voice. And, being a feminist isn't a new thing. It's been around for a long time because a lot of women have cut a lot of hay for that whole movement. So this is great. She's not doing too much, and this pace of song, this kind of mid-tempo song, whether it's a bright and happy song or more a sullen song, this is where Chrissy needs to be. When they get a little too frenetic, the Pretenders, they don't do as well. So this is exactly why they're a great band right here. Even if this isn't the best song on the album, if this is a middle of the road song, boy, how good is this song? So Show Me's great. The song I don't think is hardly dated at all. And look, it does sound a lot like Back in the Chain Gang. I don't know if you guys picked up on that at all or not, but it's a different point of view. It's a different feeling. It's a happier feeling than Back on the Chain Gang. So maybe there's some connection there on purpose. I don't know, but those songs are both very familiar to one another for me. And then, you get the concept. You use Time of the Preacher to change. A story's just begun. Wait, holy cow, what else is going to happen in this story? I love that part of it. And how many albums use a narrator's voice like this, where they're slowly weaving you through this thing? And I love how smart. This isn't just a transitional song. Time of the Preacher really does something each time it comes out, and it connects like a coda back to earlier things. So it keeps the old images alive in your head, and I love that about this. And then Just As I Am, here's where Willie makes a difference. Life isn't over for this preacher. The origin of this song, it goes back. It's an old hymn. It's a over 100-year-old hymn. It's very akin to Amazing Grace, except for it's told more from the point of view of not of the grace of God, but of the surrender of the sinner. And this guy's a preacher. This is absolutely a song he'd be singing in the saddle as he tries to sort out what he's got to do. He's got to lay himself bare, and he does it. He can't do this anymore. He has to get forgiveness from himself for his own actions. And by not using the lyrics from the original hymn, you get all of the lyrics. Like if you get the intention of the song. And it's also a song, this is the song that got Billy Graham to get up out of the crowd and go to the forgiveness altar and say, I need to give my life to God. And if you know anything about Billy Graham, if this is that song, wow. And so Willie picking this song, Willie for sure knows this background of Billy Graham. And if you don't know Billy Graham's history, he saved millions of lives. Like, this guy changed people. And that makes this song a bigger thing than just a instrumental. There's a real message here about salvation, and it is critical to what's going to happen for the rest of it. For me, this is 10-9, Willie Nelson. Brian?
To build on what you said, the Time of the Preacher, it's completing the trilogy. We're wrapping up and we're turning the page on the rebirth that's going to come on the other side of this album. Just As I Am, like you said, the words that go along with the hymnal about redemption and rebirth, it's exactly where we are in the story arc, and it's a perfect fit in where we are in the album. But for me, the third time around for a song and an instrumental, it's a hard way to try to win around. And Show Me, it's a really cool song. I like what she's trying to do here. Show me the meaning of the word. It's still about them. They're going through the rough patch. She's got a new life she's trying to take care of. She's lost her two friends, and she's just wanting to have the world show her what love means in the middle of all this mixed up stuff that's going on. I love the playful guitar, and at the end, it feels like they just add a little bit of an echo effect on her vocals. I think that has a real nice way of going out. So I wound up giving this round to Show Me a 10-9.
Let's really quick also appreciate the fact that the rounds meet up, and we're both going to the Word. Willie's character is seeking salvation and redemption, rebirth, and the Pretenders, Chrissy's like, show me the meaning of the word, because I've heard so much about it. They say you can't live without it. Oh man, I love that juxtaposition. We're halfway through this fight. What do you guys think so far? Phil?
I was a little surprised. I thought that the Pretenders, they came out a little stronger than I was anticipating after doing I always do a preliminary listen for each album. I was like, okay, this Pretenders out of the gate, they have some great, strong songs, and the Willie Nelson, okay, it's plodding along. There's not a whole lot of differentiation other than the story is progressing from song to song. But in a round v round matchup, I was surprised that Willie Nelson was even as close as he was halfway through the fight.
Brian?
Just listening to the Pretenders album and the strength of the songs that come along with it. I've listened to this album probably just as much as I've listened to Red-Headed Stranger. Knowing that it's going up against the type of album that Red-Headed Stranger is, I thought they would have a lot stronger showing coming out the gate. So I'm kind of surprised. I think, if you rank the albums next to each other, beginning to end. I think Red-Headed Stranger is probably going to get ranked as the higher album, 99 out of 100 times. But in this fight format, the Pretenders, I thought just because of the nature of the albums would stand a better chance, and I'm just not feeling it right now.
Yeah.
I was getting a little concerned that poor Willie, he's getting kind of, at least on my scorecard, he was getting beat pretty soundly.
But we'll see what happens now here in round 6. Let's go round 6. The rock block from Willie. 3 songs: Denver, O'er the Waves, and Down Yonder versus Thumbelina. Just in case you're worried, those 3 songs comprise just about 4 minutes of music. So let's understand exactly what's going on there. I'll go ahead and start round 6. Look, this provides a coda. We're looking back to what has happened, and we're backing a quiet little way out of the place, except for this time. Except for killing, Willie's Red-Headed Stranger has possibly found love, and they're dancing with smiles on their faces. And then comes O'er the Waves and Down Yonder, and this kind of gives us a transition to a new life. And the way I take this is you've got this Tejano. O'er the Waves is a very well-known song in Latin America. In Tejano music, it's used a lot. So it seems like maybe we moved to Texas. You're not quite sure, but then the next song is Down Yonder, and so even though there's not a whole lot of words in this part of the album, we have left the past in Colorado and moved on to new things with this new woman that he apparently loves. So that I love that. I think it's great, but gosh, it's a lot of things to pack into 3 songs, and it's incredible that he does it this well, this fast. But it's not as good as Thumbelina, which again, Ray Davies and her, they break up the daughter, they're trying to find a new life, and she writes from this perspective, and Chrissy's just so great at writing about female strength, and I love it. And given all of the complexity of everything Willie's trying to do, there's a lot to be said, and you tip your hat to him. But for me, Thumbelina is the better song. It's just simpler, and I'm going to go 10-9 Pretenders. Brian?
Yeah, like you said, Denver. As much as it is possible, with a triple murderer, this is a song, he's gone through the redemption and he's turning the page. I think it's symbolic that this is side B of the album, in the old days when they had vinyl. You actually turn the album over and he's starting a new life. Like you said, I really appreciate the callbacks to Blue Rock, Montana. He's in a little out-of-the-way place, and they're dancing with smiles on their faces this time around. And that segues into a couple of instrumentals, Over the Waves, Sobre las Olas, kind of a classical waltz sound, and Down Yonder, a fun little jazz hootenanny. Willie's sister Bobby, she does a really good job on the piano. And I think it does a good job of painting that picture. They meet each other in this place, and they're dancing. They're dancing slow, they're dancing fast, and they're moving on. But it's going up against Thumbelina. I actually wrote my notes after I had just listened to the last album fight, the ZZ Top and David Bowie. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Dan that mentioned driving songs. And this is a driving song, in 2 ways. The beats, you got that ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. It kind of sounds like tires rolling over the asphalt. And, it's about her, getting away with her daughter. Willie's gone south to Denver and rediscovered his life. And they're leaving the snowstorms and thunder and rain and heading to the desert to be born again. I really like some lines in the last verse, shuffled about like a pawned wedding ring. And, what's important in this life? Ask the man who's lost his wife.
Yeah.
They're also running and escaping from something. And I think their music and lyrics just tell that story a little bit better. So I gave this round to the Pretenders, 10-9.
Phil?
A lot of what I concur with what both of you have said so far. The one note that I can add on Down Yonder, they really, again, he's able to transport you into this establishment where there's people dancing, and you feel that environment and that atmosphere in this song. But Thumbelina, which I'd never heard before, at least I don't recall hearing it, I love the energy about it. Brian said it sounded like car driving on the road. My notes I had it sounded like a train running along the tracks. Just had that constant that sound, and it just made me want to get up and move. It had that kind of vibe and energy to it, and so I liked it, and so I scored this one 10-9 for Thumbelina over the Denver or the Waves Down Yonder for Willie Nelson.
The rock block goes down. All right, well, let's go round 7. My City Was Gone versus Can I Sleep in Your Arms. Brian, do it.
Can I sleep
All right, round 7. Can I Sleep in Your Arms? It was written by Hank Cochran and originally sung by Jeannie Seeley. I really like the way Willie starts this one out nice and slow with just a few guitar notes to accompany him. And he's all alone, and then more strings and drums kind of join in eventually with some piano. And then in the middle, it goes back to that stripped back sound, and just the guitar, and then it kind of cycles around again, adding the drums and the piano. And actually, it finishes with a harmonica. And I just really think they did a great job of structuring this song. And it's up against My City Is Gone. In a previous fight, I know it was discussed how difficult it is to separate Fleetwood Mac's Don't Stop from Bill Clinton's presidential campaign.
Yeah.
And my wife, she struggles with Frank Sinatra's Love and Marriage because of its association with Married with Children. This song, it takes me back to my dorm room in college, and the guys next door were big fans of Rush Limbaugh. And they thought everybody else should be too. So every day when Rush was on, they would open their doors and turn up their radios. So I would go next door and put up some Public Enemy or Victim's Family to try to drown them out. But I got a lot of this song, and it kind of causes me to twitch every time it comes on. I had to get through that in this round to see what kind of song it is. It's a damn good song. The guitar, the bass and the guitar, they're catchy as all get out, and Chrissy's vocals are just dynamo here. A lot of times we speak of the 7th round as being the Burford round, kind of the round where people start to wobble, but I think this is a really solid round. In the end, I just had to go with Willie on this one, 10-9.
Phil?
My City Was Gone, very familiar Pretender song for me, and the bass riff of this was just fantastic. And apparently it was something that Tony Butler used to play as a warm-up, and so they incorporated in this song. It's just, it grabs you. It's fantastic. But as the song went on, I felt it was just getting very repetitive and probably was just a little bit too long. It just drug on a little bit too much. It could have been a little more, they could have truncated it a little bit there at the end. But it's going against Can I Sleep in Your Arms, and it's just a beautiful song. The piano solo in it was absolutely mesmerizing. And did I hear a mandolin in this song?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
That was fantastic. And then harmonizing in the middle of the song was a surprise. I was like, what? I love it. So I had this going to Willie Nelson, Can I Sleep in Your Arms, 10-9 over the Pretenders.
All right. My analysis for the Burford round 7. Yeah, I agree with you guys. The groove is what drives the Pretenders song. And I totally agree. Like a minute less of this song would have been great. But Chrissy writes a very short, succinct lyric, stays out of the way of the groove. And the band is a Hall of Fame band because this isn't even anywhere near the best song on the album, but look how great this is. And this is album 3. This cements why they're in the Hall of Fame, because they can throw a song like this down and it's like, yeah, get in line. Like, is it the 4th best song on the album? Of 10? Like, it's great. So I love it. And I have one slight nit to pick with Can I Sleep in Your Arms. This song, I love this song. It's constantly in my own little brain iPod. It'll, if I'm emptying the dishes out or whatever, it comes into my head and I sing it or hum it out loud. I can't help it. I love this song that much. I do think that Willie should have put it in right before Denver. He had his salvation moment, and now he's truly alone again. He's not dealing with everything else. And if he had slid it in there, I think it makes more sense. And then we understand that he moves south and finds a lady and everything else. But I don't know that before this song. So I just think that for whatever reason, I would have liked to seen that earlier. And so, although I love this song, I wish it would have been earlier in the album, like maybe like the last track on side 1 or whatever. But that would be my nit to pick. So I'm going to go the tightest round for me in the fight, fellas. But it was 10-9 Pretenders for me. All right, round 8. Remember Me versus Thin Line. Phil, go ahead and do it.
And I agree with you. I think that last round was probably the toughest round to score. Yeah, the thin line between love and hate. This was a different sound from my perspective. This was not consistent with the sound that the Pretenders had been putting forth so far in the album. It felt more like a 70s ballad to me. And the one thing, Chrissy again, her lows are her basement, her floor is very high. So her vocals again were super strong. it didn't feel like the Pretenders to me. It was a very odd song to me. But Remember Me, it was a nice, catchy song with a rhythm and an atmosphere that really grabbed me. And the guitar work again was impressive. I don't know who's playing the piano on this album, but the piano solo again was fantastic. And the harmonica coupled with Willie's vocals complemented each other so well in this song that I had to go 10-9 Willie Nelson, Remember Me over Thin Line Between Love and Hate. And I'm seeing a trend here now on the backside of this fight where Willie Nelson's like, okay, is that all you had, Pretenders? I'm coming after you.
Yeah, he's found his range. He knows how to score at will. I'm pretty much exactly the same with you on this one, Phil. I have to call out the musicianship on this album, right? It's one thing to play your part, but Paul not only keeps time, but again, throughout this album, you have this horse-like feel with his drumming, and he's barely doing anything with the drums. So just the ability to not overdo it and yet get so much out. It's fantastic. And of course, Paul's a legend in drumming. I mean, everybody knows how well him and Willie work together. But this sounds like the Old West. It sounds like something from 1901. Oh, and by the way, that's his sister, Bobby Nelson, playing the piano. And not only does she play her part right, she puts you in a saloon. She puts you in the early 1900s.
Absolutely.
There are some cars around, but there's also ladies wearing calico. It's post-Victorian. It's like it's so much more than playing the damn piano. And that's why, like, when the execs hear it, they hear some crappy old, not quite ragtimey kind of music going on. But there's so much imagery in this, and it's great. I love Remember Me. It's so good. And then Thin Line, I love the beginning, the piano part where it sounds like a Rocky song. That dun, 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 dun. Like, that's straight out of the Rocky playbook. The song's a cover. And I'm going to give it a pass, and I'll tell you why. Because she changes the perspective from first person to second person. She does this. She sees that. And that changes. Who are we talking about? We're kind of a voyeur in this situation where all these negative things happen. And yet again, a strong woman who has the ability to lose her own mind, get a little crazy. And in a round that's far from the pinnacle, you've got two really interesting attempts to do something, and I really loved this. I would love to go 10-10. I won't do it, and even though both songs are covers, they both really got there, but I'm going to lead towards Willie's Song of Redemption and what Remember Me is and what a preacher would do, and I think this is exactly what a preacher who had gotten past this big thing would do. So I think by nailing that aspect of it and just really bringing home this part of the album, I've got to give Willie some extra credit for that. So I'm Willie 10-9. Brian?
Okay, I'm going to give Willie some extra credit too. But in my case, I went back and I found, I think it's the original, Lulubelle and Scotty, 1948.
Wow.
It's a slower kind of a country waltz, and Willie doesn't do it that way. He dresses it up. He makes it a Willie song. All the elements that we've been talking about all along throughout this fight are there. You got the piano, the harmonica. On this album, on this song in particular, I really like the drums. It's got this nice brushy feel on the drums. Like you said, it's that horse galloping, that pace that's going through it. Thin Line, it is a cover of a 70s soul song. I think it was the Persuaders with the original artist. Like you mentioned, they did switch it from the first person to the second person perspective. But listening to the two songs next to each other, musically, I don't think the Pretenders did enough to make this song their own, and Willie did in his case. So I gave him the round 10-9.
Yeah, I listened to another version of it too, and that whole someone's knocking on the door and the drummer knocks, and then they do the lyric of who is it. If that had belonged to the Pretenders, I might have given the round to them, but it's not original. So so close.
But I think it's interesting, though. I didn't know it was a cover. I didn't get that in-depth in the research of this particular song. But it's interesting that I picked up that this was not Pretenders. This did not sound like the Pretenders. They didn't pretenderize it at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
I have one of
it
those.
Definitely stands out as something different in this album.
I have a
Right.
pretenderizer in my kitchen in the bucket with the spatula and other things, the pretenderizer. There's a terrible joke. There's a Lipari-esque joke.
Wow.
Yeah. Waka waka.
Do you have a post-tenderizer too?
Let's do the penultimate round. Round 9, I Hurt You versus Hands on the Wheel. And I'm going to have Phil start us off.
Yeah, again, like I said before, Willie Nelson, the second half of this fight, he got some smelling salts or something, or the cut guy got that cut over his eye taken care of, and he just comes out and has no mercy for the Pretenders. And sorry, Hands on the Wheel is, again, the lyrical guitar is fantastic, but the harmonica is the star that sets a tone in this song, and I loved it. And I like the lyrics. There's deceivers and believers. But then he didn't have to do much in this round because I really did not like I Hurt You. So when I'm listening to this song, I'm trying to envision, if you could think of what 4 corners of a cube or just 4 sharp edges would sound like, that's what this song is. It was not something that I enjoyed, and it was the word discontinuous really kind of jumped out at me. The vocals are creating tension with the instruments, and I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, but it didn't work for me, and I didn't care for the song at all. So I have this as another Willie Nelson knockdown, where he's taken down the Pretenders 10-8 in this round.
Dang. Wow. Well, Brian?
All right, Hands on the Wheel. I think this is the perfect song to end this story and wrap up this arc. I really love the lyrics. And with no place to hide, I looked in your eyes and I found myself in you. And then just the pureness of the imagery at the end, And in the shade of an oak down by the river sat an old man and a boy, setting sails, spinning tails, and fishing for whales with a lady that they both enjoy. Wow. I can only assume that the lady, is the one he found in Denver. And this song, it represents the life that he's made for himself after all the trouble he had early on. And I totally agree with Phil. I Hurt You. It's the 9th song on this album, and it's the first time that I realized that it was released in 1984. I have a hard time with the way the guitars sound synthesized and the drums sound overproduced. They also do effects on Chrissy's vocals, and you don't want to do that to Chrissy Hynde. I almost scored it a knockdown, but I like the lyrics. You can barely hear them because they layer stuff over the top of one another. If you would have been in the SS in 43, you'd have been kicked out for cruelty. Or later on when the guys wanted to watch Dallas on a Tuesday night. Everybody knows Dallas was on Fridays. So, in the end, I gave this round an easy 10-9 to Willie Nelson.
Everybody knows that. As
on after Dukes of Hazzard.
As the lunar eclipse hits its peak, here we're finishing up this round, and I agree with you guys. Hands on the Wheel is a great way to finish this song. So I Hurt You. Chrissy he's talking about drugs and abuse and struggles. But look, we know what the good pretenders sound like. They didn't pretenderize this song, Phil. They missed it. The message is there. The usual groove is missing, and the song has dated badly, and that terrible echoey guitar effect that they did, it takes away from what they're capable of doing and does not meet their high standards. Maybe a couple years later they can pull this song off, but they've gone to this hurt theme over and over again, and I don't think they've earned the right when they've produced this song. Give me something else. Give me some kind of song of transition, something to look forward to in the next album. This just isn't it. Willie, yeah, like you guys said, this guy's found himself. He's moved south. He's raised kids. Now he's out there fishing with his grandkid, and everybody loves grandma. That's kind of how I take this. In my mind, Willie's fast-forwarded us through a whole multi-decade arc of this man who's truly been saved and is now giving that salvation on to the next generation. And I think it's great. He was sent on this journey by a woman, but he was also saved by a woman. And this is an easy 10-9. And like Phil said, a 10-8, very possible. I allowed the Pretenders to stay on their feet because, they're really goddamn tough, and I love the hell out of them. But Willie stuck to his plan, and it's absolutely worked. Let's go ahead and get the last round in. Round 10. Bandera versus 2,000 Miles. Brian?
Okay, Bandera. Yeah, I never saw the Red-Headed Stranger movie, but in my mind, this is the song that might be well suited for, panning out of the final visual and starting to roll the credits. The guitar and harmonica are nice, but to finish off an album fight, I really wish that there were words to go along with it. It goes up against 2,000 Miles. This song, I don't really know where to begin. First, I think Chrissie Hynde is exceptional on this one, and as is the guitar work. I have no idea why this song reappears on British charts around Christmas time. It doesn't seem like it's a Christmas song to me. It's melancholic and beautiful, not Christmassy at all. Another song she wrote for James after he passed away, and they say it's about the void between life and death, but that's a heck of a lot more than 2,000 Miles. And maybe it's more about a long distance relationship, but it's really just an exceptional song, and I gave it the round 10-9.
Yeah, same thing exactly, Brian. I agree with you. This is roll the credits, pan out, because we're still in that town. You still understand what's going on in this character's life. I wanted to point out Mickey Raphael's harmonica throughout the album. Whenever he's there, it's sparse, but it's the right amount, and it adds the texture in that you want. Sometimes he's just helping. Sometimes he's creating an image. Top to bottom, this album, the musicianship, just the doing what's needed and what's not there, picking all of these covers, putting songs that are over 100 years old and giving them new life, new meaning, all of it, and it's all capped off by this very beautiful piece of music. It's not enough to beat 2,000 Miles, but it is a fantastic ending to a masterpiece, and when you listen to it from the tips all the way to the end, you know why this is the Abbey Road, the Sgt. Pepper's of country music. It's considered by many people to be the greatest album ever in that genre, and it's also one of the best albums ever according to Rolling Stone, and it's got songs on it that are some of the best ever written in a variety of different lists, and it's the conclusion of a great album. Not quite enough to beat 2,000 Miles. I got to mention Pete Farndon's death, and what that means to this album. And again, little jangle guitar, little mid-tempo from Chrissie, and she delivers what she delivers. Is it a Christmas song? Is it a song written for a dead friend? It's both, because folks say so. So I went 10-9 for the Pretenders. Phil, how did you close it out?
Well, I agree with both of you. Like Brian said, Bandera, it is this story that he's been telling is a musical movie. He's been setting this atmosphere, telling this story, and you listen to this song, I can just see the sun setting on the horizon with this song. It's the perfect ending to a perfect Western movie, and the tone of the guitar and the interplay with the harmonica is perfect. The piano solo again is captivating, and it's an excellent song, but again, it's going against 2,000 Miles. Robbie McIntosh, his guitar is the tone of that guitar is the perfect bed for Chrissie, her beautiful vocals in this song. And like Brian was saying, it's thought to be a Christmas song, but when you really look at it and listen to it, okay, this is as much a Christmas song as Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Just because there's Christmas ornaments in Die Hard and they're playing Christmas music in the background, it doesn't make it a Christmas movie. So this is not a Christmas song because they mentioned Christmas. It's more about the intent of the song and things like that. So I had this, even though Bandera was a great song, it couldn't compete with 2,000 Miles, so I had this 10-9 for the Pretenders.
Well, that closes out this fight. Let's go ahead and get Richard's post-fight analysis.
I didn't give the numbers their just due when they said it would be a 7-3 fight. And looking at the official cards, it came out to an average score of 96.7 to 93.3 for the Red-Headed Stranger, which is a 7-3 round fight. What made the difference? Well, numbers-wise, it was 4 unanimous rounds for Willie and only 2 for the Pretenders. And after listening to the two albums myself, I think it really came down to musically Willie Nelson's songwriting abilities and the artistry of assembling his songs some standards, and even covers in a way that made total sense. Adding to that the fact that a concept album, which is typically to be listened to in order, was broken up and it still won. It just speaks volumes about the songwriting on that album. So what did the Pretenders do wrong here? Well, for me at least, when they are in their pocket, they are almost unstoppable. The combination of Chrissie Hynde's vocals and the Jangle Pop instrumentation is perfect. The problem is when they stepped away from that and got a little experimental. It just didn't work as well as The Red-Headed Stranger did. It was close listening, but numbers-wise, in the song v song format, I think the numbers and the judges got it right this week. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Richard, good call on that. It was a crazy fight. So, fellas, looking at this, here's how the fight card breaks down. Clearly, Willie won this thing on all three cards. It's a unanimous decision. Phil had it 95-93, Brian had it 96-94, and then Pete had it 96-93. What I think the difference is, and why this fight isn't as close as it seems, is Willie had 4 unanimous rounds by us judges where there were 10s across the board. Phil had the Pretenders knocked down twice. I had him knocked down once and easily could have had him knocked down even 2 or 3 times. So that's what I see is that we all, despite our experience with the album, we all saw the craftsmanship of Willie, and when he had a round, he won it from all of us. Brian, what were your difference makers?
It's the craftsmanship. It's the storytelling. It's everything that Willie put into this album that just from top to bottom made it stand out. Like we said, we thought the concept fight would be a difficult fight to win, but he proved it could be done.
And this was no slouch of an album. I mean, Learning to Crawl is an excellent album. It's got to be
a very good album.
6 songs deep of like, wow, that's a good song, right?
Yeah.
Phil, your difference makers.
Well, so even though Redhead Stranger was a concept, the individual songs minus a couple rounds where either there was an instrumental that didn't quite hold the candle, or there was that one round where there were 3 songs that overall, each individual song within the concept was strong, I would say, for the most part. And I think Brian mentioned a little bit earlier that what label was he under when he produced this? So this was his first album.
He just changed labels. It was his first album with a new label. I think it might be Columbia.
Columbia, I think it was Columbia.
Sounds right. Yeah.
So when he took this to Columbia, they're like, why are you giving us a demo? This sounds like a demo tape. And when you really think about it, those guys were pretty ignorant, because as we talked about during this whole fight, was he created this atmosphere of the Old West. And guess what? The Old West was not overproduced. It was simple.
Yeah.
And that's what he was able to capture in this album through the sounds that he was able to create in this very clean, simple album. And it showed. And that's why he won, I think. It was the storytelling, it was the musicianship, and it really was the Pretenders had some strong rounds, but then when they were weak, and they didn't, to me, deliver a complete album, whereas Willie's concept album was complete from head to toe.
Yeah, and the rounds where they had unanimous wins from the Pretenders, one was Thumbelina. That's not even a super strong song, and the other one was 2,000 Miles. All the other strong songs they had on a very strong album were all split up. So even when they landed, Willie had enough to stay in those rounds and even win some of them. So it's an interesting fight, and I like to think again about the label. If he didn't have creative control, this album doesn't get made, and if he does make it, they don't release it. And what a mistake that would be. I mean, he thought about this character, and let's understand this too. Willie Nelson can write a song as good as anyone who has ever lived. And he's like, nope, I'm going to pick this 150-year-old hymn and not even play the words. I'm going to pick this other song that, has a meaning, but I'm going to totally change it. And he had the guts to do that and pull it off. Damn.
Well, I read that he picked the Redheaded Stranger based on a song he used to play when he was a DJ. And I went back and I tried to find the earliest version of the Redheaded Stranger I could find, and it sounded like a children's song. So for him to take, this song that sounds like a children's song and turn it into this is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, I talk about this album a lot because of how good it is. And going through this process, Brian, 'cause I know you've listened to this album a lot, I have such a deeper appreciation for what he did and the choices of the musicians, the arrangements, everything. It's just a masterwork.
So, Brian, you said you hadn't seen The Redhead Stranger. I mean, obviously I hadn't, because I hadn't even heard this album before. But it makes me want to go watch this movie.
Yeah.
And see how what in my mind, how this story is delivered and portrayed in film, if it coincides with what I had in my mind.
Well, fellas, it's a Sunday night. I appreciate you guys doing this. I'm glad to get you two on the same show together. Once Brian pointed that out, I'm like, done, next fight, let's do it. I got to get back in the rings. I've been trying to pull back from judging too much, but I really enjoyed it. And, of course, everybody should understand, we love these albums. We love these artists. We want you to appreciate it. I know I already spinned Redheaded Stranger a lot, but I'm definitely going to be doing more Pretenders because I love the band, and I have always loved them. They have so many great songs, so we encourage you guys to support these bands. Go see the Pretenders. They still go out and play, and it's Chrissy Hynde in front of the microphone. So you're going to see the heart and soul of this band. Anything in closing, Brian?
I think I've said it all, man.
Phil?
I think I'm going to expand my library to include more Willie Nelson.
You should check out Teatro. It's an excellent album, and anything in that era of Willie is great. He is the master songwriter of all time. There's nobody better.
7 Spanish Angels is in my top 5 total songs ever.
Yeah. Well, hell, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain is one of the best.
It's close, yeah.
Christ. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.